ESPN just confirmed it. The trade the entire Commander Nation was waiting for just entered the danger zone. And here's what nobody is telling you while Washington keeps waiting. There is a receiver available right now that Peters knows better than anyone in this league. A player who already proved what he can do alongside Jaden Daniels. And if Peters does not make a move in the next few days, that name disappears from the market forever. But that is only half the story. Because by the end of this video, you are going to understand why a decision made 3 years ago in the draft explains exactly why Washington is in this situation today and why the mistake they made back then cannot happen again. Hit that like button if you trust Adam Peters. Subscribe to join the real Commander Nation. Raise hail. Let's go. Look, I understand the romance of it all. Jaden Daniels and Brandon Aiyuk, college teammates reunited in Washington. It is a beautiful story. It is the kind of narrative fans dream about. But there comes a point where romance becomes naivety. And I think the Commanders are dangerously close to that line right now. Here are the facts. With no sugarcoating, Brandon Aiyuk has been basically invisible for 2 seasons. In 2023, he was brilliant. Second team All-Pro. Over 1,300 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. Spectacular. But since then, he has played a total of 7 games. 7. And in those 7 games during 2024, he was nowhere near the player we know. Then in 2025, nothing, 0, not a single snap. So keep it a buck. What exactly are we waiting for here? We're waiting on a player who, best case scenario, has to prove he is fully healthy, prove he can hold up for a 17-week season, and prove he can fit into a completely new system under offensive coordinator David Blau. That is 3 massive question marks all loaded into one guy. And that is not even the whole problem, because the way Aiyuk has handled his situation with the Niners should be raising red flags. This man has spent months generating drama, rumors, and speculation, supposedly pushing to get out, but without ever taking a concrete step in any direction. What does that tell us about how he handles pressure inside an organization? The Commanders are building something special in the DMV. They have Jaden Daniels, they have Terry McLaurin, they have an identity that is starting to take real shape. The last thing they need is to import external drama right when this team is starting to come together. But listen, because here is the point a lot of people are not going to want to hear. Adam Peters and Dan Quinn cannot keep sitting here waiting for San Francisco to do them a favor. They are not going to do them a favor. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are not going to hand over Aiyuk just because Jaden Daniels wants to play with his college buddy. That is not how this business works, and while Washington waits, free agency is evaporating. Look at the honest state of the Commanders' receiver room right now. You have Terry McLaurin as your number 1, solid as always. Then you've got Dyami Brown, Treylon Burks, Van Jefferson signed in free agency, and rookie Antonio Williams out of Clemson, taken in the 3rd round. Look, I respect every name I just said, but if we're being completely honest with ourselves, none of those guys are a legitimate number 2 wide receiver on a team trying to compete for a Super Bowl. And here's the brutal irony. ESPN's Ben Solak put Antonio Williams on his long shot list for NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. A long shot, yes, but he put him there. He compares Williams to Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of route running toughness, the ability to win through contact, and yards after the catch. And I love that Solak sees something real in Williams because the tape is genuinely promising. But bro, when a 3rd-round rookie is your highest hope at the 2 spot on a Super Bowl contender, that tells you exactly how urgent this situation really is. So what does Peters do? Because there are real options on the market right now. Deebo Samuel was Washington's number 2 receiver last season, and he was fine, even while playing largely out of his ideal role. He is available. Jawan Jennings, the former 49ers receiver that Peters knows personally from his years in San Francisco, is still sitting out there unsigned. And if Peters does not move now, those options disappear too. The nightmare scenario here is not missing out on Aiyuk. The nightmare scenario is missing out on Aiyuk and running out of alternatives. That is what cannot happen. My take is clear, and I will stand on it. It is time to close the Aiyuk chapter, not because he's not an elite player when healthy. He absolutely is, but because the Commanders cannot build their 2026 season around hoping San Francisco does something it clearly does not want to do. Peters, it is time to move. The market is there. The options are there. Use them. But if there is something that genuinely fires me up in the middle of all this receiver uncertainty, it is looking at what is being built on the other side of the Potomac. Because while the roster gets put together piece by piece, there is something far bigger taking shape in Washington, D.C. And fam, this is going to change everything. This week, detailed plans were revealed for the surroundings of the new Commanders Stadium in Washington, D.C., and what HKS and the architects at OJB have designed is on a completely different level. 73 hectares. Think about that, 73 hectares right in the heart of Washington, D.C., and about 30% of that is going to be green space, parks, walking paths, active and passive recreation zones. We're not talking about a stadium surrounded by gray parking lots. We're talking about a full district that is going to breathe football 365 days a year. The centerpiece of the entire design is the Festival Plaza. Located at 22nd Street Northeast, the architects described it as the district's front porch, seasonal markets, public game broadcasts, art performances, pre-kickoff fan gatherings. This is not just a stadium. Man, this is a new heartbeat for Washington, D.C. What impresses me most is the continuous promenade that links the eastern and western sections by working with the natural elevation changes of the land. Jim Burnett, founder of OJB, said something that stuck with me. They want to create a public space that is buzzing with life on game days while also promoting the health and well-being of the community every single day. That is vision. That is thinking on a grand scale, and the timeline is on track. Official approval from the National Capital Planning Commission came through on April 2nd. Construction kicks off in the spring of 2027. The doors open in 2030, 3 years, fam, and we will have our new home in the DMV. Every second of the wait is going to be worth it. Now, while we look forward to that bright 2030 future, there is a story from the recent past that deserves a minute of honest reflection. Because sometimes our mistakes teach us more than our successes. And this one has plenty to teach. Emmanuel Forbes, the number 16 overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, a player Washington bet an entire first-round selection on who lasted less than 2 full seasons with the team before being cut. Now the Rams, who scooped him off waivers, have officially declined his 5th-year option worth $12.6 million for the 2027 season. And look, the Rams' decision makes sense. They just acquired Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs and signed Jalen Watson in free agency. Forbes, who posted 45 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 18 pass breakups in his first full season with Los Angeles, showed flashes of what he could be, but clearly he is not the priority at that price for LA. So what does this tell us about the Commanders? First, it tells us that cutting him was a brave but necessary move. When a first-round pick is not performing at the level you need and you have the opportunity to recalibrate, you make that call even when it is uncomfortable. Peters made it second. It is worth noting that the Commanders have now spent 3rd or 4th round picks on wide receivers in 3 straight drafts, and the 2 previous selections, Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane, have not delivered what this offense needs. That puts enormous pressure on Antonio Williams to break that pattern. As for Forbes in Los Angeles, he still has a full season ahead of him on his rookie deal to earn himself a new contract. Hopefully he makes the most of it, but for Washington, that chapter is closed. The focus is somewhere else entirely. Look, the Commanders' picture right now is full of legitimate questions. Does Aiyuk ever get here? Does Antonio Williams take that leap? Does Peters find the number 2 receiver this offense is desperately missing? I do not know, and if someone tells you they know for certain, they are lying to you. What I do know is this: the talent on this roster is real. Jaden Daniels is real. McLaurin is real. The defense being built around Ashburn is real. And that stadium coming in 2030 is going to be the most electric house in the entire NFC East. So tell me in the comments, do you wait for Aiyuk or do you make a move right now? I want every single argument you've got. And if this video hit different for you as a Commanders fan, y'all know what to do. Raise hail, fam. See you in the next one.